The apartment was unusually still. Not a sound from the street below, no hum of traffic, no distant sirens. Just an unsettling silence that pressed in on Sarah. She moved through the rooms, her footsteps muffled on the thick carpet, each step echoing the silence rather than breaking it. Shadows stretched from every corner, elongated by the single lamp she'd left burning in the living room. Sarah hugged her arms around herself, a shiver running down her spine despite the warmth of the apartment. She wished she hadn't drawn the curtains earlier. The streetlights would have been some comfort, a reminder that the world outside was still alive and vibrant, even if her own apartment felt shrouded in an oppressive gloom. She paused at the entrance to her bedroom, her gaze drawn, as always, to the large antique mirror that hung on the far wall. It was a beautiful piece, ornate and imposing, but tonight it seemed to pulse with a strange energy. A coldness emanated from its surface, a chill that seeped into the air around it. Sarah quickly averted her eyes. She wouldn't look at it, not tonight. She couldn't shake the feeling that something lurked within its depths, something that watched her, something that waited. Turning away, she hurried into the room, determined to keep her back to the unsettling presence she felt emanating from the mirror. The bedroom offered little solace. The same oppressive silence hung in the air, broken only by the sound of Sarah's own anxious breaths. She went through her usual bedtime routine with hurried movements, her mind refusing to stray from the mirror in the other room. It felt like a watchful eye, its gaze following her every move. Trying to distract herself, Sarah picked up a book from her nightstand. She tried to lose herself in the words, but they swam before her eyes, meaningless and distant. The silence of the apartment pressed in on her, amplifying the sound of her own heartbeat. She could feel it now, a distinct presence emanating from the other room. It wasn't a sound, not exactly, but a feeling, a heaviness in the air that seemed to draw her attention. Against her better judgment, Sarah found herself drawn to the bedroom door. She told herself she was being silly, that her imagination was running wild. It was just an old mirror, nothing more. And yet, as she reached for the doorknob, her hand trembled. A cold draft seemed to seep under the door, sending a fresh wave of shivers down her spine. The hallway was dark, the single light from the living room barely penetrating the oppressive gloom. Sarah moved cautiously, each creak of the floorboards sounding unnaturally loud in the stillness. Her heart pounded in her chest, a frantic drumbeat against the silence. As she reached the entrance to the living room, she hesitated. The mirror was directly across from her, its surface reflecting nothing but darkness. Taking a deep breath, Sarah forced herself to step into the room, her gaze fixed on the floor in front of her. And that's when she saw it. A flicker of movement in the mirror's reflection, a fleeting glimpse of something dark and undefined. It was gone as quickly as it appeared, but it left a chill in its wake, a prickle of unease that ran down Sarah's spine. She told herself it was just a trick of the light, a shadow cast by the wind brushing against the window. But deep down, a primal fear began to stir within her. The apartment, once merely unsettling, now felt menacing, the air thick with unseen danger. Sarah couldn't tear her gaze away from the mirror, her breath catching in her throat as the fleeting shadow began to solidify. It started as a subtle darkening at the edges of her own reflection, a gradual encroaching of the darkness that seemed to emanate from the mirror itself. Slowly, almost imperceptibly at first, it began to take on a form of its own. Tall and skeletal, its edges blurred and indistinct, yet undeniably present. It moved with an eerie fluidity, a graceful, undulating motion that defied the rigidity of its form. Panic welled up inside Sarah, threatening to overwhelm her. She wanted to scream, to run, to do anything but stand there and watch as the shadowy figure in the mirror continued to solidify, to take on a more defined and terrifying presence. but her feet felt rooted to the spot, her gaze locked on the horrifying spectacle unfolding before her. The air grew heavy, charged with an unseen energy that made it difficult to breathe. The temperature seemed to plummet, a bone-chilling cold that seeped into Sarah's very core.